Report from the ground. Croatia.
Yes.
How's it looking?
Tell you what, I've been hard at it with this coastline stuff.
Yeah.
I give Croatia as a destination 10 out of 10. Actually, I wrote some notes for this very reason.
You wrote some notes some travel notes. Notes on Croatia. Okay, I can read them out for you if you want from the screen.
Can you really?
I think so. Yeah. Notes on Croatia misspelled. Adriatic Sea very salty. Siesta enforced. Saying things in German to non-German speakers universally funny. Moon looks crisp. Need to work out how to get the big belly look without having a fat face. See, that's kind of, I don't know if that's really specifically a Croatian note, but you also, there was a paragraph break between that and the other note. So obviously you thought of it as a different mission.
Yeah,
that's
basically.
Good. Adriatic Sea very salty?
Very salty. Surprisingly so. You're really buoyant in there. And I did some digging, so it's 10 times the salt content of our Pacific Ocean back home.
That tracks to me.
Yeah.
Wow. And as a result, you give Croatia a shocking 10 out of 10 as a holiday destination because of all those things and more.
I don't have anything to detract. So, like, we've been spending the last bit of time on an island, one of the islands, one of the many islands. Some things to note: have not bumped into another Australian while on this island.
It's a positive, I think.
Yeah, only 2 other English-speaking groups. One of them British, one of them surprisingly American. Group of young people. Strangely, also no Chinese or Japanese. I don't know. I guess when they come this far away, they go to Paris and whatnot.
Is it a destination for our friends in East Asia?
Well, not apparently.
I don't know where they're going these days for a beach holiday, water, boats sort of vibes. Where are they off to? I know China has its lovely southern provinces now.
Yep.
That you can stay within the People's Republic and get the experience of a Mediterranean climate. Actually, I think it's more like subtropical, but whatever.
So I saw clouds once briefly in the morning and they quickly dissipated. Highly recommended for anyone who wants to chill, I guess, business trip.
Amazing. And you never get that from a agentic AI system?
No. Would a agentic AI system note the various races that they see on their holiday?
Our last episode that I recorded with Raf that you would have heard on Friday, we talked about GPT-5 as something that's coming from OpenAI. Well, the very same day we published that episode, it was announced and released.
Yes.
In a very standard down round experience. But it's a perfect opportunity now to talk about it because there's a couple of days latitude so we can see how people have been responding to GPT-5, which is obviously the latest major model release from OpenAI, which had a lot riding on it. I'm not sure, but it certainly had been hyped in certain quarters. I think it's fair to say.
Absolutely. I think it does have some broader implications. In fact, there's a litany of down round dubs even, I would say.
Yeah.
But let's just start by exactly what it is. As predicted, as we mentioned on the show, and as everyone was saying, they unified the models, so there's no longer 4.0, 4.5, 03, 03 Pro, 04 Mini High, none of that stuff. It's all 5 and 5 with thinking.
Yep. And 5 with thinking just forces it to do something that 5 can do anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any capabilities that 5 doesn't have. But yes, they've cleaned up their horrible model picker. Although, and as we're going to talk into, that's turned out to be more controversial for OpenAI than I think they expected it to be.
Yeah, yes.
A lot of people are angry about this, which we'll get into because I think it puts them in a very, very thorny position between the two different customer bases that they're trying to court.
Yeah.
And I think this will be a big theme of today. But I think before we dive into the ins and outs of what they've done and the new model and our experience with dicking around with it, I think it is worth throwing your mind back, when we did our episode on GPT-4, it was almost 2 years ago, I believe. It was the end of 2023 that GPT-4 came out. And that was like very obviously a pretty big moment. I remember like using GPT-4 for the first time and being like, wow, this is really good.
Yeah, likewise.
Because, you know, ChatGPT kicked off the whole fucking AI boom because all of a sudden it became a consumer product. There was hundreds of millions of people using it. Before that, LLMs were cool, but more of like a tech industry curiosity, not really. No one was talking about them as like the major thing that was happening in tech right now. It was the thing that was sort of happening off to the side while other stuff was going on. But that made that happen. And then however long it was, I think it might have been 6 months later or something, or maybe a little bit longer than that, GPT-4 came out, because before that it was running on 3. And that was very obviously a moment where everyone was like, okay, not only is this a major consumer product, this could like change the economy. This could be like a revolutionary piece of technology. And the past 2 years, or however long it's been, we've been living in the shadow of GPT-4. Everything's been trying to match the performance of that, muscle ahead a bit. So when OpenAI said they were going to release 5, they've released a ton of models in the middle, but like that numbered release is like, it's got to be a big sort of moment. And I think, you know, we predicted that it wasn't going to be a big moment, and I'm not going to give ourselves a huge pat on the back because a lot of people were predicting that, but I'll still take the dub. And I think it's pretty fair to say that this was not. No one was blown away by this at all.
Totally. Even before, let's go back to the day before it was released. Sam Altman posted on Twitter, like the Death Star.
The Death Star from Star Wars. Yeah.
Like a kind of appearing. As a movie boffin, can you explain what the meaning behind that was?
Yeah, so I'm happy to explain that to you, Raf. So Sam Altman posted a screenshot from the movie Star Wars Rogue One, which, in the context of the film, seconds later, the Death Star shoots a giant green laser, which kills Ben Mendelsohn.
Okay, so do you think this was a targeted tweet?
I think this was a targeted tweet at Ben Mendelsohn.
Has Ben Mendelsohn been particularly critical?
No. It was a weird thing to post, because the general implication of posting a picture of the Death Star looming over the horizon is you're about to drop the bomb on those suckers.
Yeah, right. I mean, that was my assumption. It was some foreboding. We're about to get one-shotted.
Yeah, you're about to get one-shotted. Millions will die because of what we're about to drop.
Exactly. So even excluding the kind of the dark overtones, I would say, that suggest people are going to die, if you just kind of take it as more of a throwaway, like, oh yeah, we're about to drop a bomb on him, like you're about to get blown away.
Show of force.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is the next thing. It certainly kind of has been met with a tepid response, because it kind of is. We can talk about the evals and all that crap, and you know, from that perspective, it looks good on the better evals. On a lot of them. It looks good. Does what every single model does, which is like marginally beats everything else on charts.
Yeah, it's the classic story. It's number one across all the eval charts now by like a small amount, in obviously a very like practiced way. Because again, you got to remember the dynamic here is that no one wants to like get too far ahead of their station and release something amazingly better. Even like putting aside the question of whether they can do that, it seems like they also don't want to do that, because if they release something that is like crazily ahead of the game, it's very possible that like Anthropic or Google will match it immediately, and then they'll have nothing left in the can for potentially like months.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's this weird like marketing thing.
They surely still want to put out like the best they can. And then, yeah, they obviously haven't included the evals that they're not winning on. But okay, whatever. But then the tepid response. Yeah. Now, and then we'll get into some of the weirdness that has occurred through the unification. Yeah, I've been using it now for the last couple of days, obviously, like everyone has. And yeah, it feels fine. I personally haven't noticed a dramatic increase. It doesn't feel... If you hadn't told me that this was GPT-5, I don't think I would have noticed.
No, I wouldn't have noticed either.
Other than now the UI being annoying, in my opinion. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like this isn't a huge step change here.
I think it is noticeably faster.
Yeah, that's true. It's pretty quick. But I wonder if that's just because it's primarily, I don't know about you, but a few days ago, I was basically using O3 for most things. And like other than just really quick questions about,
Sure.
okay, if you're measuring coastline in units of 10 centimeters, then how long is the coastline of Croatia? Things like that, obviously. Even that I'd use O3 Pro for. No, but simple things. What does this mean? Translation stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm using the base. That's quick. Because the point of this, I think, is that they're trying to use the equivalent of 4.0, the non-thinking, non-tool using, non-calculating models. That does make it quicker. It's using the quick models.
Yeah, that is true. But I think even on the quick models, it's like noticeably snappier. So I think they've induced it there. It seems like it's better at coding, but again, it seems on like a subjective level, it's not as good as Gemini or Claude or potentially even Grok. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many people are actually using Grok for code, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's made them outperform crazily in head-to-heads against Anthropic stuff or whatever.
Well, I've been using all four for some vibe coding, and I'm using this as a non-dev, so bashing things together for fun, kind of.
Yep.
And I've got credits with OpenAI, I got credits with Grok, as well as obviously a shit ton of credits with Gemini, and I pay for Claude Max. I basically can't use the OpenAI ones or Grok because it just rate limits me constantly. Yeah, and it errors a fair bit on the end of just like won't return something. So I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because they're really popular. I mean, Grok, I can't imagine is that popular, but they too have these rate limit issues and bandwidth issues where it'll just like send back an error being like, sorry, I'm busy, can't respond. So I can't even really properly test them to see how good they are because it's just a frustrating experience of like 1 in 3 responses just not coming through. Yep. Whereas Gemini is solid, and so is Claude for that matter. I like very rarely run into those issues with either Gemini or Claude. Anyway, sorry, that's just a small digression.
But I think it speaks to the point. And it was also like, so basically, just to give a little bit more of like the technical information of what they've done, they've collapsed all their models or all the different types of models into one family. So there's GPT-5, then there's GPT-5 Mini, GPT-5 Nano, which are like progressively smaller parameter models. Smaller parameter means it's not quite as good, but it's quicker. I mean, there's more going on technically, but that's just so you're following along at home. Plus a reasoning capacity. And then it has like a router shoved in it, which basically it takes your input when you ask it, how long is the coastline of Croatia? And the router goes, okay, I can probably answer this question really, really well using these tools that I have. And then it goes, I'm going to activate the parts of GPT-5 that are best to answer that question, which means that it technically reduces the confusion of having 5 different bafflingly named models that only the power users really know what they do or are for. And B, and I think this is also the critical thing, is that I think a big part of GPT-5 and their strategy with it is just like making it economical for them.
Yeah.
It's almost like a model level like refactor encoding for the humanities students who listen to this podcast means like, you are taking a giant chunk of code or complex systems and you're turning them down into something that's simpler and faster and smoother while doing essentially the same thing. Or this build up of craft over however long. And I think that's basically because, they're building out massive data centers and all this sort of shit, and they're picking up all different new customers, but they're still not making money on anything. So I think a big part of GPT-5 is like, let's make this a lot more economical for us and make sure we're not wasting compute on inquiries that don't need as much compute as we're giving it.
Yeah. Additionally, having a leading coding model that is on par price-wise with like the Geminis and whatnot of the world, because their other issue was that O3 was really expensive. Like so O3 or O3 Pro being their favored coding model, the model that was best at coding, was super expensive, up there with like Claude Opus, but it wasn't quite as good as Claude Opus. And so anyone who wanted leading performance but not that price would be using Gemini or possibly even Grok or whatever. Anyone who was happy to pay was using Claude, which put them in a weird spot. So the new API pricing for the coding stuff is much more in line with kind of Gemini areas.
Yeah.
Which I think was also part of it. It's like that entire coding aspect of it, they were like had nothing strategically for anyone.
Yeah, so the API cost is lower now, and it's like it's competitive, and that seems to be one of the things that people are happy about. Is they're like, yeah, the speed and the cost is good. In terms of its actual ability, yep, it's better, but it's not dramatically better. Which wouldn't really, I think, be a huge problem if they released if they made their models cheaper and more capable. Everyone would be like, amazing. But it's the fact that it's got the next big number, like GPT-5. It's the next
And
version.
also, I'm sorry, like all this crap, we've mentioned it before, but like tweeting things about like you people wouldn't understand. I walk out of meetings maybe 5 times a day now that if the information of those meetings was made public, it would crash the entire global economy.
They would kill me. They would have to kill me.
They'd have to. Have to. 1 billion people would literally die if they heard this. They would be dead, and I would be considered a murderer if you heard the contents of these meetings. You have no idea what's coming.
They would put. You ever been put on trial for a meeting? Well, I would if this shit got out.
And then they drop a unified model and some cheaper API pricing.
Yeah, exactly. Nuremberg's going to look like a church committee, folks. Once people wrap their heads around this. We've brought the API pricing down slightly, and also 7% improvement on SWE benchmarks. So that's pretty good. And the International Court of Justice is like, all good. We'll let this one through to the keeper, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Sam Altman
no trial, all good.
He like releases that like poison vial in the inside pocket of his jacket. Like,
smacks. Okay. Yeah, all good. Or he's like, I just fucking drunk it, and now you're not doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that, yeah, as a personal user, I personally do find, and I get why, like, power users on one side, and we'll talk about the other side who are pissed off about this as well. As a quote-unquote power user, it is kind of annoying now where I'm like, it fires back with, like, a quick answer, and I'm like, no, take your time, think, give me some references. Then it fires back again with a quick answer, and I'm like, please, I need you to think about this. You know, I've got extended thinking, reason it out, and it gives you a short answer. When I wanted to give me some of those, you know, previously you could use those O3 Pro things and it would give you quite an in-depth answer with, you know, references, etc. It's kind of annoying that I can't do that now.
Yes.
I will put my hand up and say, I recognize that we're not the primary audience for this if you're trying to be like a billion user company.
No, I agree. We've been saying on the podcast, like, it's crazy that you click on the model picker and it has GPT-4o, GPT-03, O4 mini, O4 mini high, GPT 4.5 in brackets research preview. Like, it was obviously a complete mess. But on the other side of it, the people that knew what they were doing, including us, but also other like people who are using them for both professional work, and it turns out lots of other people figured out like, okay, the names are all annoying dog shit, but I get, okay, that one, the vibe of that one is this one's for more like hard thinking autism, not emotional. This one's like a bit more of a fun creative writing partner, even though, and maybe we should have taken a cue from the fact that people warmed up to the name ChatGPT, one of the worst product names in history, and people are fine with that these days. But now you don't have that granularity. You can't be like, oh, I want that reasoned search heavy answer or whatever. I'm going to go to O3. You can't do that. And you have to just coax this one major model into doing all of them.
Yeah. Look, I don't think that their previous system was, I'm not saying like, actually they shouldn't have done this. I'm just saying like, maybe there's slightly more nuance that can go into it.
Yes.
I feel like Claude's in a pretty good place where they've got a Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus, and then you can kind of increase the level of thinking. That is intuitive. It feels good. You can get it to do what you want it to do. Regardless, even if they keep it as is, as I said, I do recognize that people like us are probably not the key audience. That said, if you're trying to use it in a business context, you know, and you're paying for 1,000 seats or whatever at $300 a pop because you want to using the most advanced models, maybe there is some, you're missing out a little bit there, but who knows, regardless. So that, people are finding that annoying and are a bit mad at that, as well as just like the general, like, not disappointment, but like the fact that I don't think anyone is particularly blown away. It's being called a bust. But the other side of it I find fascinating was, and I do not think that they would have seen this coming, is you have, like, in some ways, I mean, casuals or normies is probably not the way to say it, but we talked about this way back in the day when they changed one of their models. People who formed some kind of psychosocial connection with 4.0 in particular, and I think that even just the model naming or whatever, they are very mad that their friend is gone.
They're furious. Yeah, if you look at, like, the Reddit, I mean, you can go to, like, the craziest subreddits, like, Reddit, r/my boyfriend is AI or whatever. But even on, like, r/ChatGPT and the other, like, main AI subreddits, they're just flooded with people who are furious. You have killed my friend. You killed my friend.
Maybe that was what the Death Star was.
Oh my God. Because, and this is actually funny, because you can actually see them ping-ponging between all the different demands of their diverse customer base. Because the thing is that the GPT-5 is way less sycophantic, it seems like. It seems like its default way of being is way more down the line, far more likely to call you out in your bullshit, and nowhere near as friendly.
No, exactly. They turned down the suck you off meter.
They turned down the suck you off meter, and I'm calling it now that knob's getting tweaked up again. It's getting a tweak for sure.
Yeah, he's got his fingers back on the suck me off dial.
Because it turned out, as we speculated, we basically said that it started sucking people.
People like it.
People like that shit. They like whatever, and like going through the Reddit now. Yeah, it's just like all these people. I saw a massive argument between people who were kind of like, there's like, it seems to be half the community is sort of like, why do you care about that? Maybe you should talk to some real people. It's not that big a deal that your computer friend sounds a bit different now. And then the other half of the people are like, you totally don't understand, you don't get it, blah, 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 blah. I pay for this service, and like, I have friends in real life. There's a lot of those sort of...
You got a qualifier.
But this was my emotional sounding board. Exactly what we've been saying lots of people use in ChatGPT for. They're bouncing stuff off it. They're, I don't know, talking to about personal things in the dark of night. And they are mad that what they've gotten is this, like, maybe smarter, but just like way more emotionally neutered model. Yeah,
exactly. And people like specifically saying, I'm not trying to be like your productivity king. I don't care about the business use cases. I, talk to this thing every single day, and you've abandoned me. And look, a lot of this is a problem of their own making.
Yep.
Had we never had all the choices and it had always been basically one model, both the pro users and the people who need it for emotional companionship or whatever wouldn't be mad. Because there was nothing to have taken away or to have changed. So that's number one. Two, I think the framing is like, there's like a bit of kind of like that Twitter brain going on here, where everyone on Twitter is constant, and certain podcasters are constantly talking about the suck you off dial being too high. And they're like, we need to fix this because this is crazy, this sycophantic stuff. As well as potentially the like that AI safety stuff of like AI psychosis becoming more and more prevalent, and people getting there's like a account on Twitter that just is constantly quote tweeting people saying one-shotted, like being one-shotted by AI psychosis. It's really fucking funny. And sometimes it's just someone saying something with like, but it's just written in ChatGPT style, but it'll be like the CEO of an airline or whatever. It's just one-shotted. Anyway, but anyway, there's that, like, right? And I think they may have potentially overreacted to that to a certain extent. Like, it's like, we got to dial this back to being...
Yeah, no, I fully agree. As you say, it is sort of an error of their own making. But the problem they have found themselves in, which is like, I think is the underlying issue of a lot of the confusion they're going through as a company, is that obviously they have decided that their route to becoming a sustainable company and a giant tech company and the next Apple and whatever is to become consumer heavy.
Yeah.
Like the GPT, and it was clear in the actual GPT-5 presentation, which was Apple keynote, essentially. It was a really slick Apple keynote style presentation. And they spent an inordinate amount of time talking about the chat and the voice features. Because it was very clear that like we are speaking mostly to the consumer, at least with this presentation right now.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with that. But they also have to deal with the fact that all the benchmarks, all the discourse that comes out of the tech press, all the discourse that comes out of Twitter and whatever, is now interested in coding and reasoning and scientific stuff. So they need to juggle the fact of like, we're looking after the audience we kind of actually want and think will scale, which is the consumers, who clearly they want the suck off robot that will talk to them into the wee hours about their life. Plus the fact where it's like, there are coders who want this shit to like work well with a code base, like plugged into a fucking GitHub.
Yeah.
And like Anthropic and Google are smashing them on that front. Smashing them might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's kind of widely accepted that they're ahead.
Yeah.
So they just have to like ping pong between these two groups with like drastically different demands. That's before you even get to like, I don't know, other corporate users and other business users.
No,
and
totally.
Stuff.
With this rollout, they probably should have had, here's my, what I think. Even if they were to keep everything the same it is, because everything you just outlined there is bang on, they needed a pop-up, I think, at the very beginning. Welcome to ChatGPT-5. Quick question, what do you most want to use this for? And now in settings, it's quite hard to find. You got to go into settings, customizations, which says, or personalizations, one of the two. There's two different ones, personalization or customization. It says on, so it looks like it's an on-off toggle, but actually you click on it and then it opens up a whole nother pane with all these questions about how you want it to act, including like different response types, being like sarcastic, robotic, blah, blah, blah. And you can kind of choose that. I feel they had two options. When they updated to GPT-5, knowing that, they have probably at least these three discrete segments, there might be more, being people who are just using it for like, on one end you've got companionship, who are like it's their girlfriend or boyfriend or what have you, or maybe, I don't know, other kin. Is that a thing? And then
it could be that.
Slightly along that line, you've got people who are just kind of using it for daily life advice,
work, like
health questions, maybe some 9 to 5. I would even move them slightly further along, but maybe chucking that in there. But a lot of just general knowledge questions. It's kind of their Google, but also
writing emails for work.
No, they're next. I'm putting them further along
all right, like sure.
We got boyfriend, girlfriend, general life advice and like information. This person said this to me, but also like doctor stuff. Then you've got kind of work people writing emails and whatnot. And obviously there's some crossover here. Then you've got kind of your more pro work people who are using it just for work and business, not just like writing emails or whatever, but like actually writing reports and whatever. And then you kind of got coders. And they have to kind of, as you say, satisfy all of those kind of 5 segments. I think that the way to do it, once you're breaking down everyone's workflows and like killing everyone's boyfriends and girlfriends, is probably like the simple way is just have a questionnaire when we've updated ChatGPT-5. How do you like this to, how do you typically like this to use it? If they didn't already know, which to be honest, surely you're an AI company. Can't you just friggin' analyze all of the previous ones and then just be like, I'm going to give this person like a rating on.
I think that's their solution, right? Like, and all the memory stuff. And like, yes, they are giving a little bit of control over what kind of personality it has with some easy, tick boxes or whatever, which, great. But yeah, I think the idea is get everyone onto one model and then like make our personalization stuff good enough that this model can be a shoulder to cry on for one user and a hardcore fucking Rust assistant for another.
Totally.
But as a result, and I think this is the thing that they've run headlong into now, because I think the main problem was, and it wasn't announced that this was going to be a case, but you just have no way to access. You had no way to access the former models. You couldn't go back. You couldn't look at anything. They've re-added it back in for paid users. Like there is a legacy model selector because of this. But I think it just
I didn't notice that. I did see that he was saying, he responded to someone saying we're bringing someone who's crying about GPT-4 going away, being like, don't worry, we're going to bring it back or whatever. I don't have that yet. Okay, I don't have the legacy
Yeah, actually,
models.
I don't have it either, but I saw other people saying they did, so
Yeah.
I just assumed that it had rolled out, but maybe it's coming out periodically. But I think it just proves to them that, like, oh fuck, we do actually have these multiple customer base who want very different things, and our model isn't good enough for that. Also, apparently, and this is what Sam Altman posted on X, their router broke on day one. So the system that actually diverts you to the model you're supposed to be talking to was not working properly. I don't know if that was just like some cope bullshit or some like he's making it up, but that's what he suggested on X.
So more broadly, I think that back to the notion that like this wasn't the quantum leap, what it shows is we are, I think, as predicted a long time ago on the Down Round podcast, but obviously not at all exclusive to us, is that we are kind of, to a certain extent, reaching the limit of at least the progress you can make within the current paradigm of like LLM training and whatnot. Like there's going to have to be something that notion that just like endlessly scaling compute will endlessly vastly improve exponentially the quality of the models. Well, I don't know if it ever was exponential. I think they were kind of like it'll linearly improve the quality of the models. In that, you know, if we 10x the amount of GPUs we buy, we'll 10x the quality of the models. I don't know how true that is. Obviously, there is some capacity constraints with regards to actually buying the GPUs themselves, but
it seems to still be working, at least is what they're telling us. And like Anthropic is saying the same. And, you know, Elon Musk is still betting that this is true, that there's still a bunch of scaling gains to be achieved by adding more chips to the equation. And there probably is. But I don't know, maybe you got to hand the dub to Jan LeCun, chief AI scientist at Meta, who's been saying this the whole time. And it's why he's not involved with this super intelligence team. Is he's like, LLMs, they're kind of, they're cool, nice, but like there's other things we got to come up with to fill in the gaps and make something that's actually intelligent. Yeah. Because this ain't it.
This ain't it. Well, exactly. And this is not to say that LLM's a bust or anything. And as I said, there's still, even if we hit pause right now, there's going to be 10 years of product innovation still to come on top of this and cool apps and cool things. However, yeah, it does suggest it, because it does still make a lot of the same silly mistakes, right? There's like the classic one, 5.11 plus 5.9 and things like that it's like constantly screwing up.
It's still fun. Like, I mean, there's the funny thing where like people were saying that it gets the how many R's in strawberry question, but it gets that right now. But it doesn't get like how many R's in blueberry. It's just like they were like, all right, we'll fix the strawberry thing. We'll fix the number of R's in strawberry, but they can't generalize it or whatever. Because it still makes like dumb basic arithmetic errors, even as it solves much more complex equations with reasoning.
Yeah, which is also a little bit annoying when it comes to like, I was asking it to kind of model out some costing stuff. And previously I chucked that just instantly on O3 Pro because they would go off and start running Python on it. And it's not doing that now. Like it's just kind of LLMing the numbers. And it's like, I don't want you to LLM the numbers. I need you to use...
I don't want you to guess.
I don't want you to guess. I'm not asking you to guess. I'm asking you to tell me the truth. And you know what I mean? Now I'm like saying, I'm having to like demand that it go and do that.
Yeah, go do it properly. Yeah,
exactly. It's like I'm a friggin' teacher. But yeah, the point is like that does suggest to me at least, which is why the focus has now become like, okay, our competitive advantage is as a product company, as again we've been saying this for ages. It's like, and that's why so much of the focus of the keynote was like on the actual product itself, less so on the models, you know, less so on making exponential advancements and more just on like how you interact with these things.
Yeah.
What does that mean for AI investment and all that kind of stuff? I mean, as I said, I don't think that there's going to be a slowdown, and if they can still keep eking out incremental gains, they're going to do it. Inference isn't going anywhere. Like, people are going to keep using it for inference. As like agentic workflows, as annoying as that term is, people are going to, I think particularly in the coding domain, people are going to be are using this more and more with like just, Anthropic released that statement about how they were going to have to put some rate limits on their max level because there were certain people who were using multi-agents at once running 24/7, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just constantly working. It's like, what the fuck are people doing, man?
Yeah, and as
my gut told me they were like doing annoying marketing stuff.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Because I mean, like, yeah, this comes back to the core thing as well, where and this is another earnings thing we didn't talk about much last week, even though these are private companies, they're not reporting earnings. Revenue stuff comes out through the press. They're absolutely pumping on consumer subscriptions. They're bringing in billions and billions of dollars through subs, but the amount of money that they are just setting on fire with every inquiry. If anyone's played with Claude 4 Opus, it's an amazing model.
4.1 even.
4.1, and 4.1 just came out, which was, I guess, to preempt whatever OpenAI was about to do. Was it with GPT-5? Again, they released this tiny performance bump at the top end, and they didn't even really explain. They're like, oh yeah, it's 4.1, it's a bit better. Which, come to think of it, that's extremely normal for software. Like,
yeah, true.
When it's a 0.1 software update, that's actually very normal. But it's their fault for making it this big fucking moment every time they roll out a patch. They're like, could this possibly be like the 0.01 patch that solves the economy? That's the sort of shit they're talking about. But like,
meanwhile, rugby league is saying we've updated, Justin Thurston's face or something.
Exactly. And that, yeah. But Claude Opus, it really has that. And even when you're using it for not programming tasks, but like writing tasks or even just to talk to it, I wouldn't recommend it because that's a very pricey conversation. Go talk to a real person, I think. But it has that thing. And it's actually a funny thing I've been meaning to bring up a few times because it's the term that people use all over fucking AI Twitter and tech Twitter and whatever. Is like the big model smell. Like when you're talking to... That's what they call it. It's like, oh, this has got the big model smell. Because when you're talking to it and you're like, this is a bit weird and uncanny, and it's not because it's actually an intelligent system, it's just because it's got fucking 900 billion parameters, has an extremely good statistical model of how the English language works, and as a result, like it tweaks your uncanny valley sensor because you're like, oh, fuck, this is weird. Opus is like that.
Yeah, I agree.
But it
with
also,
that.
like, you'll be, if you're dicking around with the API as I was once, like, you're like, after not very much time at all, you're like, oh, I just spent $30.
Yeah. It's expensive as hell.
Which is why, sorry, I was looping back around to the fact of they've just been like, we're losing money on even the simplest inquiries. We cannot allow power users, quote unquote, to just be chugging this thing for the equivalent of, it would be like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a day more than that. Maybe like 10,000 plus a day per customer. For a product that costs $200 a month to be spending $10,000 a day on.
It's a problem with the whole pricing model. I've said this before because rappers have this same issue. It's like, it's very hard. As soon as you put like a monthly subscription on something, when there is a comparable API pricing. So as a consumer, I've basically got two options. I can pay like exactly based on my usage using the API. I can pay whatever, several cent a token. It's less than that, 1/10 of a cent a token or whatever. I can pay that way if I want. Or I can pay a monthly price and just not worry about it and ideally not get maxed out. Although obviously, if it's just that raw, you have the problem where people who are going to use more than the $30 a month are obviously going to go for the subscription because it's in their interest. People who are going to use less are going to go for the API because it's in their interest. I mean, other than obviously complete normies who are just going to go for the subscription anyway, fine. So then you have to start putting caps on. And then the caps feel really weird and annoying when you've still got 7 days to go and one of the models or whatever is blanked out and you can't use features. That feels terrible as a user. Then, and obviously as a company, it's like, well, yeah, here's a chance for us to just keep like upping the the transfers of subscription. We can have this higher tier. It's natural to want to have an unlimited tier, but you just run into exactly that same problem as we just discussed there. And if you've got an unlimited tier, people are going to use it unlimitedly. Well, the ones who are going to pay the $300, etc. Anyway, that's for them to work out their pricing issues there.
They got to work out the economics. And there's always like I feel like the vibe that I pick up from not just Anthropic but also some of the other limits and things. Like for example, I think like Google now has it that if you're using it through their chat interface, not API, like it has like some dynamically managed context limit, so you're not absolutely hammering it, or I don't know, whatever. There's all this sort of stuff, and I think it shows that the SaaS calculation, the classic sort of SaaS calculation, that you charge X amount of money, which may be like slightly below cost for many users. Like many users are getting more value than they're putting in, but you just assume there's going to be a whole bunch of people paying for it who just barely use it, that only plug in a couple of things, and eventually it balances out. I think that clearly shows that like that pooled use argument doesn't really work at the top end, because the top end people of using AI are absolutely thrashing it.
Yeah. I mean, again, goes back to the issue of that this is not a zero marginal cost business anymore. In the past, you have upfront cost on a piece of software, on a friggin' CRM or whatever. Other than ongoing kind of a little bit of customer support, 10 people are using it or 100,000 people are using it. There's some minuscule marginal costs in the scheme of things on obviously like, servers and whatnot. But for the most part, much like Downround, whether, there's 1,000 people listening to this or 1 million people listening to this, it's not going to really change our cost.
This very much does.
Yeah, this does. AI does. We said this years ago, which is interesting and something that they have to reckon with. But regardless, point being, I think we should probably come to a final conclusion. GPT-5. I don't know if I'm willing to put busted, but it's a bust.
Playing around with it. I think it's a bust. Bottom line is, and this to loop it back to what I said at the top of the app, when GPT-4 came out, they seemed like a company that had come out of the future or whatever. They were doing stuff that no one else was doing. It seemed like it was going to be a dramatic shift to how things were done. This is just what it looked like. Whether or not it was true is another question. Now they're not special. They're not special at all. There are rival models which do better at various things. There's a palpable sense that there's no secret sauce in OpenAI that means that they can't be lapped or beaten. They obviously have amazing talent, and their product pipeline is good. And to this day, their app and their product is better than any of the others. I think it's still fair to say.
Yeah.
But there's nothing on the model level that's making them the number one. Like Anthropic, Google, XAI, not
Meta.
Yet,
did you see?
Yeah.
But did you see that people were saying like Zuckerberg using ChatGPT-5 and realizing he's just spent billions for nothing?
Yeah. I mean, that's totally.
Yeah, but I will say, between all this, heeing and hawing over, oh god, you got the people on both ends of the spectrum are mad at this model and saying it's it doesn't really work for them. And by model, I mean it's not so much model, but the application. That middle ground who just don't give a shit about this kind of thing and probably not sure they've even noticed that it's changed from 4 to 5 or whatever. That is the biggest core. So it may turn out to be that for all of the people having a whinge on Reddit or Twitter, and that basically is the two genders when it comes to the people complaining about this stuff and kind of represent both sides of that spectrum.
Yep.
But between is the middle of the bell curve, which is the vast majority of people. Even, I'm on a holiday talking to someone about who says they use it every single day. They're building a business with it, blah, blah, blah. He had no idea you could change models. He's been using it for months. He didn't even know that you could click on the thing and change the models.
Yeah.
And for him, it might be a better experience because now occasionally it's going to call up a better model and do some thinking and whatnot. So it may well be the case that even though, again, that doesn't take away from the fact that this is not some insanely huge leap forward or advancement. We haven't had a new step change. I don't know if it has affected the global economy one bit, to be perfectly frank.
No.
But it's still, the majority of people might have a little bit of a better experience.
Isn't that what life's all about? The greatest good for the greatest number.
They really should have just called it 4.6.
Yeah, 4.6. I reckon you had a couple more dots after the 4 before people would be like, okay, all right, this is a joke now. I reckon you could get 4.6 and maybe 4.7 or skip to 4.8. You'd be like,
well, you know how that's true. But but you can go to 4.11. You know how software does that sometimes. Very annoying to look at.
Yeah, once you have when you have two decimals on your version number, you better be a German factory backend software. Don't do that to me don't do that to me with consumer stuff. I don't care. I don't need your bloody diary.
I wonder how it would go. I'm going to try it right now. I'm going to ask it like, what software came out earlier? BHP-Insight 4.11 or BHP-Insight 4.3? Nah, he got it. 4.11 is the later release and 4.3. This thing is AGI.
AGI achieved.